Have you ever been taken advantage of by your own family? When you try to help, not only do they fail to appreciate it, but they also see it as your obligation. This story isn't just about money. It's about greed, betrayal, and the harsh lesson on the limits of kindness. Follow along and share your advice with me. My name is Damon. I am 32 years old and a financial specialist at a prominent investment firm. My work revolves around numbers, profit reports, and critical financial decisions. I value clarity, transparency, and logic because in my world, a single miscalculation can cost millions of dollars. My life is quite simple. During the day, I handle investments. In the evening, I go to the gym, meet friends, or read books on financial markets. I have no family or children to worry about, just my parents and sister, Vanessa, whom I once trusted unconditionally. My family was never wealthy, but we never lacked anything either. My father is a quiet man who always fulfilled his responsibilities, but rarely expressed his emotions. He worked as a maintenance worker at a construction company for over 30 years before retiring a few years ago. On the other hand, my mother is the opposite. She always cares deeply for our family, but she has one fatal flaw. She can never say no to Vanessa. As for Vanessa, my 37-year-old sister, she is intelligent, charming, and incredibly persuasive, but also shockingly irresponsible. She once had a comfortable marriage with her ex-husband, Daniel, but after their divorce, everything changed, and that divorce led to the most significant conflict between Vanessa and me, a conflict I still can't forget today. My sister once had a well-off marriage with her ex-husband, Daniel. They got married when she was 27, and after more than a decade together, their marriage fell apart. 3 years ago, they officially divorced. At the time, their 2 children, Oliver, 5 years old, and Emily, 3 years old, were too young to understand what was happening. All they knew was that their father was no longer at home, and that their mother was constantly stressed and exhausted. Daniel, her ex-husband, had been a businessman in the financial investment sector, but one bad decision changed everything. He lost everything in a significant investment deal, drowning in debt. After the divorce, he couldn't provide financial support for his kids for a long time because he was struggling with his debts. Vanessa didn't have a stable job. She had been a stay-home wife, relying entirely on her husband's income. After the divorce, suddenly having to take care of 2 small children on her own, she was nearly overwhelmed. And then, I remembered that night vividly. A freezing December evening in 2021, with the wind howling outside. I had just finished a long, exhausting day at work, and was about to make myself a hot cup of coffee, when I heard a knock at the door. Knock, knock, knock. I opened it. Standing before me was Vanessa with her 2 kids, both bundled up in old coats, their wide eyes staring at me. Vanessa looked more worn out than I had ever seen her. Her eyes were red. Her hair was a mess, and I could see the sheer exhaustion on her face. Damon. Her voice was hoarse, barely above a whisper. Can we come in? I didn't hesitate. I let them in, utterly unaware that this decision would cost me a significant amount of money over the next 2 years. As soon as she stepped inside, Vanessa lost all composure. She collapsed onto the couch, burying her face in her hands, sobbing uncontrollably. The kids stared at her, confused, not understanding what was happening. Oliver stepped closer, gently tugging at her sleeve. Emily nestled into her mother's arms, her tiny voice breaking the silence. "Mommy, don't cry. We love you." Vanessa sobbed even harder. I stood there, watching my sister tremble, ultimately breaking down. I had never seen her this vulnerable before. She choked on her words, her eyes filled with desperation as she looked at me. "Damon, you're the only one who can help me right now. I don't have enough money for rent. I can't even buy food for the kids. I don't know what to do." I clenched my fists, trying to process what I had just heard. My sister, who once lived in luxury, was now sitting before me, begging for help. I looked at her 2 children, They were still clinging to their mother, their eyes filled with fear, as if letting go would make her disappear. I couldn't turn my back on them. Without much thought, I immediately transferred $2,500 monthly to cover her rent and living expenses. At that moment, I told myself, she's family. She needs me. But I didn't expect that Vanessa wasn't asking for a one-time favor. She looked up at me, her tears still fresh. Damon, could you help me every month? Just until I find a stable job. I hesitated, feeling something wasn't right. A large sum like that, every month. I wanted to say no. I was about to. But then my eyes met the kids again. Oliver was still clutching his mother's sleeve. Emily was curled up in her arms, her innocent gaze filled with trust. I let out a deep sigh. All right, don't worry. I'll take care of it. I didn't set a time limit. No agreements, paperwork, or conditions. Looking back, I should have recorded that conversation or drafted a written loan agreement to hold her accountable. But I didn't. Because she was family, I chose to trust her. And that was my mistake. At first, every time I transferred money, Vanessa would immediately text me her gratitude. Thank you so much. Damon, I owe you big time. I don't know what I would do without you. Messages like these repeated for the first few months, making me believe I was genuinely helping my family. But over time, her attitude changed. The gratitude slowly faded, replaced by an unsettling silence. I started feeling like something was off. One day, I was on a FaceTime call with Oliver and Emily. Like usual, the kids were running around the living room, laughing and playing. But as the camera shifted slightly, something in the background caught my eye. On the sofa sat a shiny, expensive Chanel bag. I froze. Did you buy that? I asked. Vanessa flinched for a split second, but quickly regained her composure, forcing a nervous smile. Oh, it was a gift. From a friend. A friend who would gift an unemployed, single mom struggling financially an expensive designer bag. Something didn't sit right, but I convinced myself I was overthinking it. Then more red flags started appearing. Began avoiding any discussion about job hunting. Every time I asked, have you found a job yet? She always had the same response. I'm looking, but it's not easy. The kids are too young. Who will care for them if I go to work? They need their mother. Right now, Damon, I can't. Just leave them all day to work. Whenever I started doubting her, she used the kids as an excuse. And the worst part, she even manipulated our mother. Whenever I visited home and brought up the issue with Vanessa, my mother would always find a way to defend her. Damon, you're her brother. Don't you see how helpless the kids are? Do you know how hard it is to be a single mom? Just for a little longer. Please help your sister out. That's when I realized something. Mom didn't just trust Vanessa unquestioningly. She expected me to keep supporting her as if it were my responsibility. But my father was different. My mother, he never directly involved himself in the financial matters between me and Vanessa. But whenever I sat down to talk with him, he always gave me words of wisdom that made me think twice. Damon, you need to set boundaries. Helping family is good, but if you keep this up, you'll be taken advantage of. Vanessa needs to learn to take responsibility for her own life. Whenever my father said something like that, my mother immediately argued back, leading to heated fights. I had witnessed them argue over this issue so often that family gatherings became tense and uncomfortable. And every time I mentioned stopping the financial support, my mother would look at me disappointed, while Vanessa remained silent, as if she was waiting for me to break down and change my mind. I felt trapped between the forces, but kept helping for the kids' sake. And then, do you know what the most shocking part was? After 2 years of unconditional financial support, a total of $50,000, I came to a painful realization. I wasn't a good brother. I wasn't a devoted uncle. I was just a walking ATM for my sister. And I realized it on my mother's birthday 1 year ago. That day, the whole family gathered to celebrate. I arrived with a small gift. A high-marnisen silk scarf my mother had wanted for a while. But Vanessa was different. She walked in, wearing an elegant dress, her hair styled in soft waves, and a shimmering necklace around her necklace. I noticed it immediately. The party was lively, everyone laughing, chatting, and celebrating. I didn't say anything. A big question mark was already forming in my mind. And then, the moment that changed everything happened. Vanessa gently set her wine glass down, looked at me with a serious expression and said, Damon, I need to talk to you. I raised an eyebrow. About what? She took a deep breath. You should increase my allowance to $3,500 a month. I froze. Why? Her response was calm, almost casual, because prices are rising and you don't have a family or kids to worry about. I need more money to take care of the children. I felt a wave of anger rising in my chest, but before I could say anything, my mother jumped. And you're still single? Damon, what's the harm in helping your sister a little more? I turned to my father. He remained silent. I didn't immediately refuse. Instead, I answered calmly, my job isn't very stable right now, so I can't increase it now. Vanessa didn't look pleased, but she didn't argue either. She just smiled politely and continued with dinner, as if nothing had happened. But there was one thing Vanessa didn't know. The moment she walked into that party, I had doubts that it sparkled more than ever. I said nothing because I didn't want to ruin the celebration, but I had already made up my mind. I was going to find out the truth. After the party, I stayed behind to help my mother clean up. As I wiped the table, I noticed Emily, daughter, holding a piece of paper. At first, I didn't pay much attention, but as she ran past me, I saw a luxury brand logo printed on it. I stopped her, gently crouching down to her level. Let me see that, sweetheart. Emily obediently handed me the paper before playing with her brother. The moment I unfolded it and read what was inside, the uneasy feeling in my chest exploded into pure rage. It was a shopping receipt. Chanel perfume, $350 Louis Vuitton bag, $2,200 luxury spa treatment, $500. I clenched the receipt tightly, my blood boiling. Without hesitation, I slammed it onto the table, my voice sharper than ever. Vanessa, the entire house fell silent. My parents turned to look at me, confusion on their faces. The kids shrank into their grandparents' arms, their innocent eyes filled with worry. Vanessa froze, still, holding her glass of water. I stepped forward, holding up the receipt right in front of her. Would you explain the shopping list and that necklace you're wearing? She hesitated, her eyes flickering between me and the paper in my hand. For a brief second, I saw panic flash across her face, but after a moment, she sighed, shrugging as if it was no big deal. It's a gift from my boyfriend. Someone I met 2 months ago bought it for me. I let out a dry laugh. A new boyfriend? Then why don't you ask him to help with your kids' expenses instead of spending money on luxury goods? Vanessa hesitated momentarily but quickly regained her composure, coming up with a reasonable excuse. He's not wealthy, Damon. He just wanted to make me happy, but he can't afford to support me financially. I smirked, locking eyes with her. So you think I have more money than him? She pressed her lips together but didn't deny it. Suddenly, my mother spoke up, her voice soft but filled with disapproval. Damon, You're being too harsh on your sister. She deserves happiness. 2. If her boyfriend wants to buy her gifts, what's wrong with that? Besides, if she ever needs money, she can always sell them later. I stood there, staring at my mother, then at Vanessa, and then I let out a cold laugh. All right then, next month, you can sell it. I locked eyes with Vanessa, my gaze devoid of any sympathy, because I'm out of money. I left my parents' house. Right after that, driving back to my apartment, I felt a slow burning anger coursing through my veins. I couldn't believe what had just happened. Vanessa had shamelessly asked me to increase my support to $3,500, all while wearing a shiny gold necklace around her neck. And when I confronted her, she responded with a blatant lie about some imaginary boyfriend. Couldn't sleep that night. Lying in bed, I kept tossing and turning, my mind refusing to rest. The shopping receipt haunted me. Chanel perfume, a Louis Vuitton bag, a luxury spa treatment, all expensive indulgences, none of which had anything to do with raising her kids. In total, after 2 years of support, I had given her over $50,000. How the hell does someone who can't afford rent end up buying all this? That's when I knew I had to get to the bottom of this. Vanessa claimed her boyfriend had bought her that necklace, but the more I thought about it, the less sense it made. If this man was wealthy enough to buy her expensive jewelry, then why wasn't he helping her financially? Why wasn't he supporting her kids? Why was he only showering her with luxury gifts? I made up my mind. I was going to find out the truth. I didn't want to waste another cent on Vanessa's lies, but a small investment to uncover the whole truth. I was more than willing. The following day, I contacted a private investigator, a former communist turned minus private detective, Mike Carter. A colleague had recommended him before, saying he was thorough and discreet. We met at a small cafe downtown. Mike was a tall, broad-minded shouldered man, with a stern but professional demeanor. I handed him everything I had on Vanessa, her phone number, address, and social media accounts. I need you to look into my sister's boyfriend, I said firmly. His name, job, income, everything. Mike nodded. Give me a week. If there's something shady about him, I'll find out. We shook hands. I was determined to get to the bottom of this. While waiting for Mike's results, I decided to do something I had never done before. Contact Daniel, Vanessa's ex-husband. As an uncle, I was willing to help, but that didn't mean I had to carry the entire financial burden alone. Daniel was their father. He had responsibilities too. Scrolling through my contacts, I stopped at a name I hadn't seen in a long time. Daniel Parker. I hesitated for a few seconds, then took a deep breath and pressed call. The phone rang a few times before a familiar voice answered. Damon, I haven't heard from you in a while. What's up? Daniel, I need to talk to you. It's about Vanessa and the kids. There was a brief silence on the other end before he finally replied. All right, let's meet at 3 p.m. At precisely 3 p.m., I arrived at a small cafe near downtown, the place Daniel had chosen. He was already there, sitting in a quiet corner. He still had that same calm demeanor, but his eyes showed a noticeable tiredness. I sat across from him, ordered a black coffee, and got straight to the point. Daniel, I think it's time you take responsibility for your kids too. His brows furrowed. What do you mean? I sighed deeply, trying to keep my frustration in check. You're Oliver and Emily's father, but I haven't seen you contribute anything for the past 2 years. Vanessa told me you haven't sent a single dollar since the divorce. Do you know that I've been sending her monthly money to support her and the kids? Daniel leaned forward, frowning even deeper. His voice carried disbelief. Damon, what the hell are you talking about? I froze for a second. Why was he reacting like that? Daniel pulled his phone out of his pocket, opened his banking app, scrolled through a list of transactions, and then pushed the screen toward me. Look for yourself. Ever since I cleared my debts a year ago, I've been sending $3,000 a month for child support every single month. I've never missed a payment. I stared at the screen. My blood ran cold. $3,000 every month for the past year. Yet Vanessa had never mentioned this. I slowly set my coffee down, feeling like I'd just been punched in the face. Daniel looked at me, his eyes now filled with suspicion. Vanessa told you I wasn't paying child support. I took a deep breath, barely keeping my anger in check. Not just that. She said she couldn't even afford rent. She cried, begged me to help. I've sent her $2,500 monthly for the past 2 years. Daniel's coffee cup slammed onto the table, and his eyes widened in shock. Will you send her how much? Over $50,000. Silence. Intense, suffocating silence. Daniel's jaw tightened, and his hand clenched into a fist. He muttered a curse under his breath. Unbelievable. I had my doubts, but I never thought she'd pull this. I gritted my teeth, feeling rage boiling inside me like a wildfire. Vanessa hadn't just used me. She had lied to us. I wasn't going to let this slide. I decided to wait for Mike's report before confronting Vanessa. On the 5th day after hiring him, I received a call. Mike's voice was low and steady. Damon, I've got news for you. I took a deep breath trying to stay calm. Go ahead. I checked all of your sister's activities over the past 2 months, her social media, her spending patterns, and even spoke to some of her acquaintances. He paused for a moment, then said something that left me speechless. There's no one. I blinked. What do you mean? I mean, there is no boyfriend. Your sister made up a fictional man to justify those luxury purchases. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Vanessa had fabricated a story about a wealthy boyfriend to have a perfect excuse for her expensive lifestyle. And as if that wasn't shocking enough, Mike had one more piece of information that ultimately sealed the truth. Damon, I've been following Vanessa all week, and I can tell you with absolute certainty, your sister is not struggling financially. My heartbeat quickened. Mike let out a short, humorless chuckle. Vanessa doesn't work. She spends most of her time at home, except at the spa, shopping, or dining at upscale restaurants. I gripped my phone idly. Are you sure? I have photos, videos, receipts. I even spoke to an employee at the spa she visits regularly. Vanessa is a VIP client. She spends hundreds of dollars per visit on premium treatments. I felt my blood turn cold. She wasn't struggling. She just wanted free money, without lifting a finger. The moment I ended the call with Mike, rage boiled inside me. I didn't hesitate for even a second. I dialed my father's number. He picked up after the second ring. Damon, is everything okay? I forced myself to stay calm, keeping my voice steady. Dad, I need you to arrange a family dinner tonight. There's something important I need to discuss with everyone. There was a brief silence. Then his voice dropped to a serious tone. This is about Vanessa, isn't it? I froze for a second but then nodded. Yes, I'll explain everything when we meet. Dad let out a long sigh. All right, tonight, 7 p.m. But Damon, don't make this more intense than it needs to be. I didn't promise him that, because this time I wasn't holding back. I arrived at my parents' house at exactly 6:45 p.m. The atmosphere was just as peaceful as always, but I knew that nothing would ever be the same again after tonight. Vanessa was already there, lounging on the sofa, casually scrolling through her phone, like nothing was wrong. The kids played in the living room, while my mother busied herself in the kitchen, looking cheerful, as if this were just another family dinner. My father stood near the window, his gaze flickering with a hint of concern. As I walked in, I sat down, keeping my composure. I didn't start the conversation right away. Instead, I waited for everyone to eat, ensuring Vanessa suspected nothing. But the moment the last dish was set on the table, I decided not to drag this out any longer. I set my knife and fork down loudly, locking eyes with Vanessa. We need to talk. She looked up, raising an eyebrow. About what? I didn't waste time. You've been receiving money from Daniel. So why did you need more from me? Vanessa flinched just for a second, but quickly regained her composure. He doesn't always send it on time, she retorted. I let out a cold laugh. Then explained this. I pulled out my phone and showed everyone the bank transaction history Daniel had sent me. Every month, on the first day, $3,000 was transferred directly into Vanessa's account. My mother stared at the screen. My father's brow furrowed. But the most significant reaction came from Vanessa. I didn't stop there. And what about the designer bags? The perfume? The spot treatments? Was that child support too? Vanessa pressed her lips together, her eyes welling up with tears, but not out of guilt. She was angry she got caught. Dama, you don't understand. Being a single mother is stressful. You don't have kids. You don't know what it's like to worry about their food, clothes, and school fees. Everything I did was for them. I let out a bitter laugh. My patience wholly gone. Being a single mom is hard. So instead of using the money for your kids, you spend it on spas, designer bags, and luxury perfumes. Vanessa snapped. I needed those things to feel better. I have the right to live. To Damon, I've sacrificed so much, and you have plenty of money. Why are you stingy with your sister? I leaned forward, planting both hands on the table, my voice cold and sharp. This isn't helping anymore. Vanessa, this is exploitation. Silence. A heavy, suffocating silence fell over the table. I took a deep breath before making my final decision. Starting today, I will not give you another cent. Immediately, my mother jumped in. Damon, don't do this. She's your sister. How can you be so heartless? Vanessa grabbed my hand, her voice softening, almost pleading. Damon, please, just a little longer. I need your help. I pulled my hand away, turning to my mother. My voice was firm, unwavering. Mom, if you keep pushing me to help her, then consider me dead. My mother's mouth fell open, tears pooling in her eyes. Vanessa, still looking at me, suddenly snapped. Her desperation turned into rage. Fine, then forget that I ever had a brother. She stood up abruptly, pointing a finger at me. You are selfish. Damon, cold-hearted. Family is supposed to stick together, and you're turning your back on me over money. I let out a bitter laugh, staring her down. Family, I echoed, my voice filled with disgust. Was it family when you lied to me for 2 years? Was it family when you stole over $50,000 from me? Do you even know how hard I had to work to earn that money? Vanessa fell silent. I turned to my father. He had stayed quiet this whole time, but I saw understanding in his eyes for the first time. I stood up, adjusting my jacket. Then I looked around at the dinner table for the last time. I'm done. Dad, Mom, I'll be leaving now. No one said a word. I walked toward the door, never looking back. And that was the last time I ever considered Vanessa my sister. When I got home, I was still fuming. The rage inside me was no longer an uncontrollable fire, but smoldered like an ember refusing to die out. I picked up my phone and called Daniel. He answered immediately. Damon, I didn't waste time. I told him everything. How I exposed Vanessa's lies. How she had been receiving child support while pretending to be broke. And how I had finally cut her off completely. Daniel was silent for a long time. Then, out of nowhere, he breathed a deep sigh of relief. Thank you, Damon. His response caught me off guard. You thank me? Yeah, his voice was low and steady, but something was calculating about it. From now on, leave the rest to me. His tone felt off, but I didn't dwell on it. At the time, I assumed he was as tired of Vanessa as I was. But 2 months later, I finally realized his real plan. That morning, at 7 a.m., my phone started vibrating as I was getting ready for work. The screen flashed. Mom, I frowned and picked up. Damon, you have to help Vanessa. If you don't, she will lose custody of the kids. I froze for a moment, but quickly regained my composure. What happened? Daniel? He cut off all financial support, and now he's filed a petition to take full custody. I closed my eyes, inhaling deeply. I should have seen this coming. This was Daniel's plan all along. I stayed silent for a few seconds, letting my mother continue panicking. Vanessa has no income. She can't prove financial stability. If you don't help her, she's going to lose her children. I let out a short, cold laugh. My voice was colder than ever. No, Mom. The answer is no. And then, without waiting for another plea, I hung up. That afternoon, after work, at 5 p.m., I was sitting in my living room, reading the news when I heard a loud pounding on my door. She called me dozens of times, but I blocked her number. So she came to my house instead. The banging grew louder and louder. Damon, open the door. I know you're in there. Slowly, I stood up, walked to the door, unlocked it, and pulled it open. Completely calm, Vanessa stood there, eyes red and swollen, her face filled with desperation. Damon, please. Her voice trembled, probably from crying too much. You can't let me lose my kids. Oliver and Emily need their mother. I stared at her, my voice steady and cold as ice. Pay me back $50,000, and I'll consider talking to Daniel to let you keep one of the kids. But that's it. Vanessa's mouth fell open, as if she couldn't believe what I just said. What did you say? It's simple. I shrugged. You took over $50,000 from me. If you want my help, at the very least, pay me back. Vanessa broke down sobbing, gripping the door frame with trembling hands. Damon, please. I'm your sister. You can't do this to me. I looked at her for a few more seconds. Then, without another word, I closed the door in her face. I didn't want to hear another pathetic plea. For a brief moment, I looked at her one last time. The desperation on her face no longer affected me. Her tears once had the power to make me feel guilty. Her begging once had the power to make me cave. But now, I felt nothing. I locked the door, grabbed my car keys, and walked out. As I got into my car, I paused for a second, turning my head to see Vanessa collapsed on her knees in front of my house. My voice was calm, but every word I spoke cut deep, like a knife straight to her heart. I didn't abandon you. You did this to yourself. Time passed faster than I expected. Another year had gone by. My mother was still angry with me, resentful that I had refused to help Vanessa. Whenever we talked on the phone, she was no longer as gentle as before. She never said it outright, but I could hear the disappointment in her voice. And me. I didn't care. I stopped going home for the holidays, not because I hated my family, but because I never wanted to see Vanessa again. I had given her too many chances. I had trusted her too many times, and all I ever got in return was betrayal. But sometimes I wonder, was I too cruel? Maybe. To some people, I'm just a selfish, cold-blooded person who turned his back on his own family over money. But if you were in my position, what would you have done? If you found out that someone you loved had been using you for 2 years, would you still forgive them and keep helping? I want to hear your thoughts. Leave a comment below. Do you think I did the right thing? Or was I wrong? And if you enjoy stories like this, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next one. Thank you for listening to my story. See you next time.